Hello, Super Saver. I hope this week is going well for you. So, as many of you in the community requested, today's video is about freezing your credit. Freezing your credit is free to do with the 3 major credit bureaus and may help reduce your chances of becoming a victim of identity theft and or other types of fraud. Freezing your credit prevents scammers from posing as you and falsely opening accounts in your name. According to this February report from the Federal Trade Commission, identity theft ranked as the #1 category of fraud in 2021, with younger people reporting losing money to fraud more often than older people. But when people aged 70 plus had a loss, the median loss was much higher, as you can see here. It also appears that identity theft reports related to new checking and or savings accounts have been increasing, while those related to new mobile cell phone accounts basically have been decreasing. And do keep in mind that this data only shows what has actually been reported to the Federal Trade Commission. It's unclear how many cases of fraud go unreported every year. With that in mind, as well as all the recent emails I've received about scam alerts, let's go through what the difference is between a credit freeze, credit lock, and fraud alert, why I prefer a credit freeze over the other 2 options, and how to freeze and unfreeze your credit with Experian. A credit freeze, credit lock, and fraud alert are similar in that all of them are ways you can protect your credit from unauthorized access and yourself from potential identity theft. So now, let's talk about some of their differences. A credit freeze prevents credit reporting agencies from releasing your credit report to lenders, potential employers, or other third parties without your explicit permission. Once you place a freeze on your credit report, it remains in effect until you remove it, until you unfreeze it basically, meaning no one can open new accounts in your name or access your credit report even if they have your personal information. So if you apply for a new loan or credit card, you will need to unfreeze your credit first and then refreeze it once the application process is over, if you so desire. According to consumerfinance.gov, there are a limited number of entities who can still see your file while a credit freeze is in place, including but not limited to creditors of accounts you currently hold, certain government entities like child support agencies, and companies that you've hired to monitor your credit file. Essentially, existing creditors or debt collectors can still access your credit report even if you have a credit freeze on your account. A credit lock is similar to a credit freeze. It also prevents credit reporting agencies from releasing your credit report to lenders, potential employers, or other third parties without your explicit permission. Here are the 2 main differences between a credit freeze and a credit lock. 1. A credit freeze is regulated by federal law. More on this shortly. Whereas a credit lock is typically offered by the credit bureaus themselves. So the credit lock you get from one credit bureau may have different terms and conditions than the credit lock you get from another. 2. The 3 major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, are required to offer credit freezes free of charge. This federal law came into effect in September of 2018, as you can see here. With a credit lock, you generally need to pay a monthly fee, which at the time of this taping can vary from $16.95 to $29.95 per month, depending on which credit bureau you use. And of course, if you want your credit locked with all 3 credit bureaus, you'll have to pay each one separately on a monthly basis. Because you have to pay a monthly fee for a credit lock though, it usually comes with additional services. Since I'll be talking about how to freeze and unfreeze your credit with Experian in this video, here's an example of what you get at Experian with a free credit freeze versus a $19.95 a month credit lock. The only real difference, it seems, is this inquiry attempt notification here. Now, I don't use this Experian credit lock service, so I don't know how these notifications work exactly, but according to the Experian website, it seems they'll notify you anytime someone tries to access your Experian credit report while it's locked. Now, this may be different for others, but for me, that's just not worth paying an extra $19.95 per month for. The other thing to note is this activation speed here. From what I understand, the 3 credit bureaus will allow you to instantly lock your credit if you pay for their credit locking service, usually via an app. If you choose to freeze your credit, that also typically happens instantaneously if you do it online. If you call them to freeze your credit over the phone, it can take up to an hour for the freeze to be activated. By law, they have to do it within an hour. If you have to mail in documents for whatever reason, then it may take longer. From my own experience, I was able to freeze my credit as well as my husband's credit online at all 3 credit bureaus without any issues. So now that you know the similarities and differences between a credit freeze and a credit lock, let's move on to what a fraud alert is. A fraud alert is a warning that's placed on your credit report that alerts lenders and other third parties to the fact that you may be a victim of identity theft. When you place a fraud alert, lenders and other creditors are required to take extra steps to verify your identity before opening new accounts or extending credit in your name. According to the Federal Trade Commission, federal law allows you to place a 1-year fraud alert also for free with the credit bureaus. Do note, though, that unlike credit freezes and locks, fraud alerts do not prevent access to your credit report, but they do require additional verification before new credit is granted. Depending on the lender, you may have to provide copies of a government-issued ID, utility bills, or other documents that can help verify your identity. 1, it's more effective than a fraud alert. Given the rise in reported fraud, identity theft, and other similar cases in recent years, as you can see here, and the number of warning emails about scams that I've received recently from the banks and brokerage firms that I do personal and professional business with, my preference is for the more effective credit freeze option. Having said this, there are certain instances when a fraud alert may be preferable over a credit freeze. For example, if you're planning on applying for a fair bit of new credit soon, whether that's a credit card, car loan, mortgage, or student loan. So, when we first moved back to the US several years ago, my husband and I opened up multiple new credit cards and bank accounts, leased a car, and applied for a mortgage, all within a span of a few months. In that case, it would have made more sense for us to put a fraud alert on our records rather than to freeze and unfreeze our credit every time we applied for a new credit card, bank account, and or loan. Another scenario where a fraud alert may make more sense than a credit freeze is if you're planning on changing jobs, moving house, or switching banks, because employers, landlords, insurance companies, banks, and other service providers, they may also want to review your credit history. Scenario 3, where a fraud alert may make more sense than a credit freeze, is if you're on active duty in the military. Scammers and identity thieves often target folks who are out of the country. So, if you'll be on deployment, consider setting up an active military fraud alert. And if any of these scenarios apply to you and you want to learn more about fraud alerts, the different types of fraud alerts that are available, as well as how to set one up with the credit bureaus, then drop a comment below and I'll see what I can pull together. Now, none of these scenarios that I just talked about apply to us. So let's move on to reason 2 for why I prefer a credit freeze over a fraud alert and or credit lock. 2, it's free. I mean, what else can I say to this? There's not much that's useful that we can get for free from private companies or the government these days. So I'll take what I can get. 3, it's relatively easy to do. It took me a little more than 30 minutes to set up my account and my husband's account at each of the 3 credit bureaus and to freeze our credit with each one. My parents are not as speedy as I am online, and even they would have been able to do this in about 45 minutes to an hour. And once you have your account set up with the credit bureaus, Unfreezing your credit is just a matter of logging in, going to the credit freeze section, and clicking on the unfreeze button. And I'll show you how to do this as well in the next section. So in my mind, even if I plan on applying for a loan or new credit card, this extra step of having to unfreeze my credit is worth the extra effort for the security and peace of mind that I have in knowing that bad characters who are out there trying to commit fraud with my personal information, they won't be successful. Now, let's move on to how you can actually freeze your credit on Experian, step by step. And for the record, and as customary, I'm not being sponsored by any of the companies that I'm talking about in this video, nor do I earn anything if you choose to do business with them. So on that note, let's dive in and freeze your credit, Super Saver. I'm going to show you how to do this online. In case you don't want to do this online though, here's the phone number that you need to call to have Experian do this for you over the phone. First, go to the Experian credit freeze page. Here's the link if you need it. I've also included it in the description below this video. If you already have an Experian account, you can sign in here, but I'm going to assume that you don't given that you're watching this tutorial. So let's click on Create a Free Account. And this page will appear. I'll enter my name and my home address. Then I'll answer this question about whether I've lived at this address for 6 months or more. And here, I'll enter my social security number. Now, I'll scroll down and enter my date of birth, phone number, and my email address. And then I'll click Submit and Continue. And this Create Your Account page will appear next. I'm going to go with this free membership option and then choose a username and password. Then I'll scroll down and select a security question, my security answer, as well as my 4-digit PIN. I'll scroll down further now, read through the rest of these details, and since I agree to everything here, I'll hit Submit and Continue. And what appears next is this Confirm Your Identity page. According to Experian, these questions are automated based on my Experian credit report. My answers are not stored and are only used to verify that it's me. I should keep in mind that sometimes none of the above could be correct, and that the questions will refresh in 4 minutes and 58 seconds. Basically, this is a security precaution to make sure that it's actually me who's trying to freeze my credit. Questions can range from who you used to work for and what street you used to live on, to when you took out a certain loan or what kind of car you drive. There were 5 questions when we went through the process, so that means you have about a minute to answer each question. So once I've answered these 5 questions to confirm my identity, I'll hit Continue. And on the next screen, I'll need to enter my social security number to reconfirm. Then I'll have to hit Submit and Continue. And this is the screen that will appear next. As you can see, my credit file is currently unfrozen. All I need to do now is click on Frozen here. And that's it, Super Saver. I just froze my credit with Experian, as this success box here confirms. Now, let's pretend that I need to sign into my Experian account again. Perhaps I have to unfreeze my credit because there are 3 other very important things I want to show you. I'm going to go to Experian.com and click on Sign In. Now I'll enter my username and password, then I'll click on Sign In. And this page will appear. I'm going to ignore it since I don't want to upgrade my account. This is the first important thing that I wanted to show you, how to get out of the Experian upgrade screen that you'll see every time you sign in, because I don't want you to think that you have to upgrade your Experian account and pay for Experian services if you want to check on your Experian credit freeze or if you want to unfreeze your credit with them. All I need to do to get out of the screen is to click on this Experian logo up here, and that'll take me to my account summary screen. I'm going to X out this box here because I don't want to connect any more accounts to Experian. Here's important thing number 2, how to unfreeze your credit once it's frozen. Going back to the screen from before, I'll scroll down to the protection box here. I can see that my credit is currently frozen. I'll click on Manage. Now I'll click on Unfrozen to unfreeze my credit. And here's the confirmation box that my credit is now unfrozen. Here's important thing number 3, how to schedule a thaw. So let's assume that my credit is frozen again, but I want to apply for a new credit card or loan. I'll click on Schedule a Thaw. A thaw basically allows me to temporarily unfreeze my Experian credit file for a specific period of time so that I can apply for new credit. This screen will pop up next. I'll click on Add a Thaw. As we can see, thaws start at 12 a.m. CT and end at 11:59 p.m. CT on the scheduled dates. Now I'll click on this calendar icon and I can put in the dates that I want, and once I've done that, I'll click Save. Here's my confirmation that my credit thaw has been scheduled. And if I want to change my thaw or delete it, I can just click on this link here. And that's how I froze my credit with Experian. Afterwards, I had to do the same with Equifax and TransUnion. And yes, those step-by-step tutorials are on their way soon to all of you as well. In the meantime, I'm curious, and only if you're comfortable sharing, have you ever been a victim of identity theft or a similarly related type of fraud? And how did you end up resolving the issue? Given how hard all of us work for our money and our credit, I think it's important and helpful to understand how we can protect our money and our credit as well. So any insights you might be able to offer others in our community would be much appreciated. All right, Super Saver, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. And if you did, don't forget to share it with those you care about. And of course, hit that thumbs up and see you again very soon with another brand new wealth building video.